Over 1300 years ago, on today's date, May 28th, in the year 722, a tiny kingdom was born in and led to the liberation of Spain from Islamic occupation. To appreciate its significance, we must travel back a decade earlier to 711, when Muslims godlessly invaded Spain to destroy it, to quote from the Chronicle of 754. Once on European soil, they, the Chronicle continues, ruined beautiful cities, burning them with fire, condemned lords and powerful men to the cross, and butchered youths and infants with the sword. The Muslims met and beat Spain's Visigothic nobles at the pivotal Battle of Guadalete. According to the Muslim chronicler Al-Hakam, never was there in the West a more bloody battle than this, for the Muslims did not withdraw their scimitars from the Christians, for 3 days. The Muslim invaders continued to penetrate northward into Spain, not passing a place, continues Al-Hakam, without reducing it and getting possession of its wealth, for Allah Almighty had struck with terror the hearts of the infidels. Such terrorism was intentionally cultivated in keeping with the Quran, see 3:151 or 8:12 for examples. For instance, the invaders slaughtered, cooked, and pretended to eat Christian captives. Then they intentionally released other Christians who, horrified, fled back to their kinsmen. According to another Muslim historian, al-Makkari, these released captives, quote, inform the people of Spain that the Muslims feed on human flesh, thereby contributing in no small degree to increase the panic of the infidels. Contrary to the claim that Spain capitulated easily, or that the Spaniards reasoned that Muslim rule was no worse and possibly more lenient than that of the Visigoths, which many modern academics claim, even Muslim chroniclers, such as al-Makkari, note how, quote, the Christians defended themselves with the utmost vigor and resolution, and great was the havoc that they made among the ranks of the faithful, that is, among the Muslims. In Cordoba, for example, a number of leading Visigoths and their people hold themselves up in a church. Although, quote, the besieged had no hopes of deliverance, they were so obstinate that when safety was offered to them on condition either of embracing Islam or paying jizya, they refused to surrender, and the church being set on fire, they all perished in the flames, continues al-Makkari, adding that the ruins of this church became a place of great veneration for later generations of Spaniards because, quote, the courage and endurance displayed in the cause of their religion by the people who died in it. In the end, native Spaniards had two choices: acquiesce to Muslim rule, or, quote, flee to the mountains, where they risked hunger and various forms of death, according to an early Christian chronicler. Enter Pelagius, better known as Pelayo, a relative of and sword-bearer to the last king, Roderick, who died at Guadalete. After that battle, Pelayo retreated north, where Muslim rule was still tenuous. Eventually, however, he consented to become a vassal of one Munazza, a local Muslim chief. Through some stratagem, Munazza married Pelayo's sister, a matter that the sword-bearer was by no means agreeable to. Having expressed displeasure at the seizure of his sister and having ceased paying jizya, tribute, Muslims were sent to apprehend him treacherously and bring him back bound in chains. Unable to fight the Muslims coming for him, because they were so numerous, Pelayo, quote, climbed a mountain and joined himself to as many people as he found, hastening to assemble. These are all quotes from the Chronicle of Alfonso III. There in the deepest recesses of the Asturian mountains, the only free spot left in the Iberian Peninsula, the assembled Christian fugitives declared Pelayo their new king. Thus was born the kingdom of Asturias, the only free and independent Christian region in all of Spain. Hearing this, the king, or the Muslim governor of Cordoba, moved by an insane fury, writes the early Christian chronicler, ordered a very large army from all over Spain to go forth and bring the infidel rebels to heel. The massive Muslim army surrounded Pelayo's mountain. They sent Oppa, a bishop or a nobleman who, like many other Christians, had acquiesced to Muslim rule, to reason with Pelayo at the mountain of a deep cavern. Oppa, once he had met Pelayo, said the following to him, quote, if when the entire army of the Goths was assembled, it was unable to sustain the attack of the Ishmaelites at the Battle of Guadalete, how much better will you, Pelayo, be able to defend yourself on this mountaintop? To me it seems difficult. Rather, heed my warning and recall your soul from this decision, so that you may take advantage of many good things and enjoy the partnership of the Arabs. Pelayo's response, quote, I will not associate with the Arabs in friendship, nor will I submit to their authority. Then the rebel made a prophecy that would be fulfilled over the course of nearly 8 centuries. Quote, have you not read in the divine scriptures that the church of God is compared to a mustard seed, and that it will be raised up again through divine mercy? Oppa affirmed that it was so. Continues the fugitive, quote, Christ is our hope that through this little mountain, which you see, the well-being of Spain and the army of the Gothic people will be restored. Now, therefore, trusting in the mercy of Jesus Christ, I despise this multitude and am not afraid of it. As for the battle with which you threaten us, we have for ourselves an advocate in the presence of the Father, that is the Lord Jesus Christ, who is capable of liberating us from these few. There at Covadonga, meaning the Cavern of the Lady, battle commenced on today's date, May 28th, in the year 722. A shower of rocks rained down on the Muslims in the narrow passes, where their numbers counted for nothing and only caused confusion. Afterward, Pelayo and his band of rebels rushed forth from their caves and hiding places and made great slaughter among them. Those who fled the carnage were tracked and mowed down by other now emboldened mountaineers. In the words of one 19th century historian, quote, a decisive blow was dealt at the Moorish power. The advancing tide of conquest was stemmed. The Spaniards gathered heart and hope in their darkest hour, and the dream of Muslim invincibility was broken. Several subsequent Muslim attempts, including 3 major campaigns, were made to conquer the newborn kingdom of Asturias. And the Christians, quote, of the north scarcely knew the meaning of repose, security, or any of the amenities, writes historian Louis Bertrand. Constant jihad raids created a wild frontier zone roughly along the Duero River, which the Muslims called the Great Desert. It became a, quote, territory where a Muslim fights for the faith, as one medieval Muslim wrote. Or as the great Ibn Khaldun affirmed, every Muslim ruler of Andalusia was obligated to, quote, wage the jihad himself and with his armies at least once a year. Louis Bertrand offers a good summary of what happened during that. He writes, quote, to keep the northern Christians in their place, it did not suffice to surround them with a zone of famine and destruction. It was necessary also to go and sow terror and massacre among them. Twice a year in the spring and autumn, an army sallied forth from Cordoba to go and raid the Christians, destroy their villages, their fortified posts, their monasteries, and their churches, except when it was a question of expeditions of larger scope involving sieges and pitched battles. In cases of simply punitive expeditions, the soldiers of the Caliph confined themselves to destroying harvests and cutting down trees. If one bears in mind that this brigandage was almost continual, and that this fury of destruction and extermination was regarded as a work of piety, it was after all a holy war against infidels, it is not surprising that whole regions of Spain should have been made irremediably sterile. This was one of the capital causes of the deforestation from which the peninsula still suffers. With what savage satisfaction and in what pious accents do the Arab annalists tell us of those, at least biannual, raids? A typical phrase for praising the devotion of a caliph is this, quote, he penetrated into Christian territory where he wrought devastation, devoted himself to pillage and brought many prisoners. At the same time as they were devastated, whole regions were depopulated. The prolonged presence of the Muslims, therefore, was a calamity for this unhappy country of Spain. By their system of continual raids, they kept her for centuries in a condition of brigandage and devastation. Even so, the mustard seed would not die. A vital spark was still alive, writes Edward Gibbon. Some invincible fugitives preferred a life of poverty and freedom in the Asturian valleys. The hardy mountaineers repulsed the slaves of the Caliph. Moreover, according to historian Henry Edward Watts, quote, all who were dissatisfied with Moorish dominion, all who clung to the hope of a Christian revival, all who detested Muhammad, fled to the tiny Christian kingdom in the mountains of Asturias. Over the following centuries, the mustard seed grew to the point of engulfing the entire northwest of the peninsula. It persevered. Various kingdoms whose core identity revolved around Christian defiance to Islam evolved from or alongside the mustard seed. They would soon launch the Reconquista, the great reconquest and reclamation of the Spains from Islam. Century after century, the Christians slowly managed to advance southward, liberating one formerly Christian city after another from Muslim rule, until 1492, when the last Muslim-held region in Spain, Granada, was liberated. And it all came to pass thanks to Pelayo's Asturian mustard seed, planted over 800 years ago on this day at the Battle of Covadonga.